everyone to the year
Amazing.
3 anniversary design panel. So you guys are here today, Stefan Orvat and Matt Walker. You're here to talk to us about game design. So what do you do on Dead by Daylight?
So I'm a game designer on the project, and I work on live design. My buddy here.
So I'm a level designer.
You're a what?
A level designer, a
All
little
right.
bit different.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Because of the anyways, this is not important. So we're talking about live design. You guys, okay, this is a lot different than our usual setup, so it's a lot more impressive, right?
Oh,
Normally
that's
we're
so
like
cool.
stuck in a small room, we talk, we meme. This is different, but we're good,
Yeah.
all right? So
Yeah.
what is live design? What do you guys do on a daily basis?
So, well, live design, as an overview, is basically a working of a live product. So it's not just done when it gets put out. We actually keep working on it and improving it. We look to improve mechanics, address bugs and issues, as well as look to address feedback.
All right, and what kind of feedback do you look into normally?
So live design, as opposed to a normal type of production, it's mostly about quick decisions because you don't have as much time. You're constantly in a rush, right? Every 3 months, if you've seen on the roadmap, we have new content coming out. So it's very grueling, and so decisions on the design side are made based on a few different type of feedback. So the first thing is that we pay attention to our design intuition. So obviously, designers have intentions. They want the game to be experienced a certain way, etc. So we listen to our design intention. But we also pay really close attention to the community and the community feedback because they're the ones playing the game. So we had to make sure that they're making the most out of it and they're enjoying it. And of course, last but not least is the data analysis, in which, when we see people playing, we listen to their feedback, and we create variables that we can track over time to see the cold, hard numbers behind what that feedback's about, and to also test our own, make sure that our own ideas and our own intuitions are aligned with that of the community.
All right, so Steph is here today to talk to us about the Freddy rework. I'm not messing this one up. And Matt is here today to talk about the map updates. So let's start with you,
Ooh.
Freddy rework. Now, I know the chat is going crazy right now. They saw a tiny little thing on a teaser earlier, and now the theories are all over the place. So I said rework for you, I said update for you. What's the difference between an update and a rework?
So when we're talking about characters specifically, an update is like what we do with the Wraith and what we do with the Legion, what you recently saw. Ultimately, we're not changing the power drastically. You're still playing him the same. We're just going to be tweaking some numbers and ways of how it actually functions. With the rework, we're going to be changing the power completely. You can expect to play the killer differently. And we're touching add-ons, the power itself, the way he plays, the way people experience him, most importantly.
So why did we specifically choose to rework the Freddy character?
So the Nightmare came out, and our players felt a little frustrated when playing against him and playing as him. Waiting 7 seconds before you can hit somebody was a bit frustrating for players. They wanted to be able to hit people right away. And playing against Freddy, him being invisible by default was very difficult for new players, in addition to the fact that they had a high interaction speed debuff, so it took a long time to do actions. So we're looking to improve those specific things.
Okay, so now we know the why we're doing things. Now, what's the difference between the original vision that we had for Freddy and the one we have for the new vision, actually, the new way?
So the old Freddy, as I was mentioning, he was like a delay type of game character with very simple mechanics where he just puts people to sleep. Now we're looking to add map mobility in addition to an active power that you can use within chases. And he still has the deviousness aspect of him, but no more interaction debuff.
Okay, that sounds absolutely amazing, and I can hear all the Freddy mains, but tell us more. So what's the new power? What changed?
We're looking at two main components. We're looking at a new sleep cycle and new dream abilities.
Okay, so let's start. So there we see it. So a sleep cycle and a dream ability. Before that, you just had to put the survivors to sleep. You had to aim your power. Now you're talking about a sleep cycle. What changed on this? Because it's completely different.
So the sleep cycle has 3 components to it. It has microsleep, which is the first one I'm going to talk about. Ultimately, players will experience Freddy differently. So when you're awake, he'll be intermittent at a certain distance, invisible past a certain distance, and completely visible within a tight range. You'll hear the terror radius by default instead of the lullaby. And that's pretty much it for the default microsleep. And you can hit people right away as Freddy. You don't have to wait for them to fall asleep.
Oh, okay, so now we're seeing some footage of Freddy blinking in and out. So at that moment, you would hear terror radius, right?
Exactly, as he's walking away.
Yes. And Freddy doesn't have any more to put anyone to sleep.
No, so this is the second component of the sleep cycle. Survivors will be falling asleep passively, so it's going to happen over 60 seconds or whatever time we choose. Keep in mind this is a work in progress, so anything may change, even with the things that I'm saying, but this should be the general idea of what's happening. After people fall asleep, Freddy should be completely visible, and you'll be hearing the lullaby instead of the terror radius, which is a little harder to detect where he's coming from.
Okay, so in this the sleep mode, right? A lot of people had feedback about the visual effect. So is that changing, or does it stay the same?
Absolutely. So the dream visual will be changing as well. People were saying that the graininess was a bit difficult for their eyes. We're working on this right now. We don't have an example of what it's going to look like, but look forward to see something different for that as well. And the dream world will be staying, of course.
Okay, so you're going to be falling passively asleep.
Yes.
Somehow you're going to need to wake up, right?
That's a really good point. So if you knew the previous Freddy, we had failed skill checks as an ability to wake up. Now any failed skill check will wake you up. That includes sabotage. In addition to failing skill checks, you can wake each other up. This is the old snap, snap, clap, clap, and then you're awake.
I think we had footage for the waking up elements.
Absolutely. If anything, people will be seeing everything later. This is just a sneak peek, of course. And the final component of waking up is the new dream object, which is a clock on top of a dresser. When you fall asleep, there will be a dream object that you can interact with that will always wake you up.
So it's way easier to get woken up by a fellow survivor or by a generator. Why would I want, as a survivor, to go to that sleep object?
Sometimes the skill checks might not be as easily accessible as people may have thought in the first place. In addition to that, waking up, both survivors need to be asleep. One survivor needs to be awake to wake up a sleeping survivor. So you may all be asleep, or there may be nobody near you. This will be a consistent way that people can find to wake up, as this was a complaint that people had initially.
Okay, so there was another build where it was making you fall asleep faster if you were not waking up with the object. Is that still the case on this work in progress?
No, we changed
that. Okay,
that.
changed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that was just
thank you for asking, of course.
A follow-up question.
Yeah.
So now Freddy doesn't have to aim a power to put survivors asleep, but he does have powers of his own.
Oh, of course.
So what's different with the new Dream Demon power?
So this is the dream abilities.
Okay.
He's got dream traps, and he's got something else. I'm going to go into that after. It's a little teaser right now. So we start with dream pallets. Dream pallets, not like the Doctor, but similar to the Doctor. You can place dream pallets on spawn points throughout the map, where pallets would normally spawn, to place these fake pallets. Awake survivors do not see these pallets, so you have to play like a memory game and remember which ones were not there before you fell asleep. And then when you fall asleep, there will be fake pallets. These fake pallets, when you interact with them and drop them, they explode in blood.
So yeah, it's very rare nowadays that there's pallets everywhere, like double pallets everywhere. Not happening anymore, right?
We will be talking
So
about
if you
that.
see that, something might be problematic, fishy.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, okay, dream pallets. Was there anything else?
Of course, there's also a dream snare. So we're choosing between the dream pallets and the dream snares. For those of you at home, we're not sure if we're going to go for both in this base kit. It might be one that turns into an add-on, or the other one is base kit. The dream snares is an ability that you can use actively within a chase. It only affects sleeping survivors. And when you place it on the ground, it will take 2 seconds to arm, and when a survivor walks over it, they will be slowed for the time that the trap is active and for a lingering effect after that.
So we don't have a visual on this one yet. Right?
This one is still a work in progress, and we are testing it internally right now.
Okay.
But they should be seeing some stuff soon, hopefully.
All right, so you talked about map pressure. Did you say anything about that
I did
earlier?
say map pressure.
Yes,
Yeah.
Freddy with map pressure. What is this?
What could that possibly be? So, some people saw a charge bar on in the video, the anniversary stream, if they're paying attention really closely. This is the generator teleport. So ultimately, as Freddy, you can aim at a generator, and you can channel an ability for 5 seconds. After the 5 seconds, you will appear at the generator.
So, so right now we're seeing footage of it from the killer's point of view. So you just aim to the generator and you just get there, right?
Exactly. You can also cancel it. Ultimately, the generator will explode in blood during the time period while you're channeling, and a husk of Freddy will also appear at the generator.
That's awesome. I've seen also that you can use them in chase. Now we see the survivor side right
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
So ultimately, you can be running towards a generator and forcing the survivor to go towards that direction, and then you can teleport in front of him to get to the generator and try to cut him off.
Oh yeah, this is what we're seeing right now.
Oh, right now.
Quentin, what did you do?
What did he not do?
What did he not do? He was looking behind him, I think. That's the problem.
Oh, yes.
Anyways, okay, so that's a lot of information, but you didn't give us any number yet. Everything is still a work in progress. Thank you for taking the time to come and show this
My
to
greatest
us.
pleasure.
Right? We know that you're gonna have a ton of other questions. The community is gonna just flood from questions. We're gonna take the time to answer them. So we're gonna gather all the questions during the weekend, and we're gonna try to answer as best as we can next week, our normal Q&A stream in our very small room compared to this.
This is going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
So it is Mr. Walker's time. I think you're gonna have to do something there.
Oh, hold on a second. Wake up, it's your turn.
Oh, whoa. I just had the worst nightmare. You were all in it. Freddy could teleport to generators. He was putting fake pallets everywhere that are exploding into blood. And he was slowing me down with these dream traps. It was horrible.
It's real, man. It's coming.
This was totally
Amazing,
not
though,
planned.
amazing. Oh, that sounds so good. Just like these pillows. How cool are those pillows?
So Matt, thank you for joining us. You're gonna talk about map updates. What is
That's right.
this?
So, map
to it.
updates, yeah. Well, so first of all, first and foremost, year 4 is lining up to be something super special. I mean, you've seen everything that we've presented so far. So on the level design side, I just wanted to say, you know, we've bolstered the team. We're 3 able bodies now on the team. We have the great Andre Laniel, Mr. Pierre Sif, who just joined us, and myself, of course. So we're able to undertake much more ambitious projects. So map updates, we'll jump straight into it, is basically us going back into older maps and essentially bringing a whole new dimension to maps you already know.
Yeah. So as we've seen in the roadmap panel, you guys are gonna slow down the production of new themes, right?
So far, we're slated to do 2 new themes this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many map updates?
So far, we're slated to do 2 map updates as well.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. So a map update is the 3 R's.
That's right.
That's what you came up with.
So, yeah, so the map updates incorporate a lot of different changes. The first, how can I say, category is the rework changes. So the rework changes, as Jerome mentioned earlier, are to reflect our evolving community, right? Because the way that our players play now are not the same way that they were playing 3 years ago. In fact, there's many things that they've learned over time and they've learned to exploit over time, things like that. And so we are evolving with the player base, and we're going to evolve the maps to reflect the reality of the situation. So reworks have a whole bunch of stuff in it.
So before we jumped on rework, refresh, and relaunch, how do we create map in Dead by Daylight? Because it's not the same as like every game.
Right, so it's a good point. So first and foremost, for those of you that don't know, Dead by Daylight maps are generated procedurally As you'll see on the screen right now, this is an example of what happens internally for the map to come together. So essentially, as level designers, we function on 4 different levels. Essentially, there's the assets that we create, which are more or less static, and we have the rules that manage how they're put together, how the level is constructed, how things are spawned. And then we have the actual map output, so what's the result of the generative process. And then we have the behaviors that the players have while playing those maps. So we look at all 4 of those different layers when we design levels for Dead by Daylight.
All right, so now that everyone catch up to what is basic, level designer in Dead by Daylight, can you explain to us what's a rework when it comes to maps?
Right. So as I said, there's a bunch of things in the rework category. It's not the only category, however. We have a lot of different things we'll be doing to maps. But the major things that we'll be doing in the rework section are things like looking at palette loops, for example.
Careful with this word.
Yeah. So the idea is that we'll be reworking palette loops. Now, the idea of reworking palette loops is we see that there are some loops in the game, such as the one on the left, where they're too valuable for survivors in a chase. What that means is that essentially there's like more loop money in those loops. And so what we want to do is we want to reduce those loops which are too valuable, where there's too much loop money, and we want to reduce that overall.
So I can already hear it, but why? It's nerfing survivors again, right?
No, not necessarily. Because basically the way the procedural map system works is that we have a palette budget, for example, right? And so what happens is we give the map a certain budget to place palettes. So what we'll do is we won't be touching the budget, but rather we'll be lowering the value of the really high value loops in favor of smaller value loops. And when we go to redistribute that value across the map, this is a very exaggerated version we see on the screen, but on the left we see a few really high value loops, and on the right, what we're aiming for actually is many more lower value loops, but overall equivalent to what we had.
So what's the goal with those?
The goal is to promote more skill-based gameplay, because with overly safe loops, there isn't so much mind gaming that can happen. So mind gaming, looping, this is like the central mechanic of the game. So we want to promote that, because it's really fun when you have, those loops where you can kind of mind game and it's up to someone to make a mistake. So we want to have a higher frequency interaction between the players, and at the same time, we want each of those interactions to be more meaningful.
So there's a lot of talk about loops here, but is there anything else that's going to come into the rework?
Sure. There's so much I can't even talk about all of it, right? So, for example, I don't know, hiding pallets. Jeez.
Totems.
Well,
That was hiding totems, right? So that's one of the really simple things to deal with. It's just taking the time to go into each of the assets and make sure that they're hidden really well. And I have to tell you, I'm pretty happy about some of them. I think the community has been seeing some of our kind of precursor to that work, actually.
yes, some of them are very well hidden.
Yeah.
It's a big.
Yeah,
big
so we're
change.
going in that direction. We're going to keep going with that.
So okay, so there was totems, then fat shaming spots.
Yeah, so obviously, well, I'm going to get into the details, but yes, spots where certain characters get stuck, yeah, we're working on that as well. It's an issue with edge objects, etc. But we're also looking at getting rid of hostage spots. So, okay, I don't want to get into that too much either, because we recently put these volumes into the basement stairs to prevent you from getting taken hostage in those spots. But we're also going to be looking at completely removing any infinite or abusable windows as well.
Okay, I think that's good.
Yeah, we're all in.
So if we're going to the refresh part,
Refresh. So
you
that's the
told
second
me that
aspect,
was your
yeah.
favorite. So why is it
It's
your
my
favorite?
favorite. It's the most exciting because as you know, any experienced Dead by Daylight player at this point, after 3 years, you know, some of you probably have like what 6,000 hours or more, like some
A very
crazy
huge
number.
nerd badge.
Really huge amount of hours played in the game. And one of the things that makes the game special is that there's a lot of unknowns. The procedural system of the level, the procedural level design system is there to promote exploration and discovery and not so much memorization, right? So what we're doing in the refresh section of the map updates is to add new tiles that you've never seen before, so you'll have to learn those loops and learn how to play them. And also, and what's even more important, is that we'll be adding layouts, new layout variations. Essentially, we'll be adding new maps into certain themes. Like, for example, Springwood, as you see right now. These are some tiles that we're working on that will be introduced into the Springwood recipe. And we'll be having 4 new maps in the Springwood theme.
So new layout variations.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, so I call them layout variations because they'll still be using the preschool, they'll be still using the houses. As you can see here, this is an example. On the left, it's the original map, and on the right, it's a new variation on the same map. So no new assets, but a new configuration for players to learn and have fun in.
It's been keeping me on my toes so far.
That's the point. Being on your toes.
So is that translated to other maps in our pool?
So map updates are a case-by-case scenario. We'll be looking at which will be the most priority going forward and making the decision on what needs to be implemented and when.
All right. And 2 and the 3 R's.
That's
the
right.
relaunch. Are we
relaunch.
are we just like starting the party for that new map? What are we doing?
You know it. You know it, Gab.
This
Come
guy's
on.
gonna have a party when it goes.
So relaunch is pretty simple, right? Whenever we release a new chapter, we have new map in the game, we promote it for the first week that it comes out to get people to try it and give us some feedback and see what's happening. It's going to be the same thing. When we do map updates, if we have new maps, or even when we re-release older maps, we will give them a slight promotion. I love these. They're so
fluffy.
so nice.
Right?
Yeah.
It's yeah, you can hide this hex better now.
So that's it. So when we come out with new maps, whether they're new themes or whether they're map reworks, we will have a little map launch party.
All right. So for the players, what can they expect on the next year's
A lot more maps than they've ever had before.
expectations? Really high. Right here.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you, Gab.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm
And
here.
thank the band.
Yo,
How
for
awesome
sure.
are they, right?
All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to